Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are announcing the theme for my themed Letterboxd 4 series for the month of November, which is biopics. Now, if you're new to this series, basically all this is just that every month we do two different videos. We do a preview video and then a results video, and each month we pick a different category. So we've done, Black History Month, we've done sports movies, we've done comedies, we've done horror was last month. So we pick a different theme, a different category, genre, whatever, and then we just take a look at what my Letterboxd 4 is in that category. So in this preview video, we announce the category, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you what my current Letterboxd 4 is, plus name a bunch of other movies that I'm going to watch this month. And then in the results video, which will be out in a couple weeks, that's where we're going to take a look at everything that I saw this month and determine what the actual final Letterboxd 4 was. There's been a bunch of episodes in this series, obviously, 20 episodes, I guess, to this point. So I'm going to put this in a playlist with all the rest of those, so you can go back and watch any of those if you're interested. Now, for November, I decided to pick biopics, and it was kind of interesting when I did this, because initially when I was writing it out, my original thought was I was just thinking, I still put biopics, like in my notes, when I was kind of coming up with all these different ideas. I put biopics, but in my head I was totally just thinking musician biopics, because there's so many of those. But the problem is, not many of them are good. So I was like, it would be a fun kind of, and I'm not opposed to doing that. I'm sure one of these days we're going to have a category where it's like picking 4 favorites out of a bunch of things I don't like. I'm sure that's going to happen at some point. But I just didn't really want to do it here. I wanted to just widen it open a little bit, and so I decided, okay, let's just do all biopics. And then in my head, I still was thinking, even up until I started really putting this together, I was still just kind of thinking biopics in general of I guess celebrity biopics. So I was thinking of, musicians, and then I was thinking of athlete biopics, and then some certain celebrities or politicians or whatever have biopics. But I was still really just thinking of it in that narrow of a mindset, until I started looking and trying to figure out what my Letterboxd 4 was, and I realized there's a whole world of biopics that are it doesn't have to necessarily be a celebrity. There can be a biopic about, a specific person, just as long as it's a biographical, film about this person, true events, something that they did, and we'll see as we watch this, there's going to be a lot of these that are very not necessarily exactly true to the story. Maybe they're a little stretched, but I certainly, once I started putting this list together, realized so many films that I was like, I don't even consider that a biopic in my head, but technically, by definition, it is. And so at this point in the in this setup video, this is where we go over the rules and the exclusions. So for the rules, it's simple. It seems simple, but it just has to be a biopic. But there's going to be some films in here that even I question off the top of my head, especially the ones I haven't seen, because all 3 of the films, there's going to be a theme when we announce the 3 films I haven't seen that I'm going to watch this month. I didn't know any of them were biopics until I looked up. Basically, there's a couple of people on Letterboxd that have these lists of just every biopic ever, and so I'm kind of just picking films off of those lists. There's one list in particular, maybe if I remember, I'll put the link to that one in the description, because that one, I want to say the person who made the list has 2.5 thousand films on the in that list, and so that's the one that I was really kind of getting some from. But there's multiple, just the top couple people that have biopic ranking lists and stuff. That's what I've been going off of. So those are the rules. Just has to be a biopic. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a celebrity biopic. It can be a biopic about maybe an ordinary person that did something extraordinary and then got a film made about them. So there's going to be a couple in here that kind of caught me off guard, and I'll make sure I highlight those, obviously when we get to those, the ones that I wasn't entirely 100% positive were biopics. So those are the rules. The exclusions, basically nothing is really excluded in terms of, whether it's in a gray area of being a biopic or not. Just if it's a biopic, if it's a biography, a biographical story, it's in there. The exclusions are in this series. Again, if you're new, this is a rule that I've been doing where if a film has already been selected in a previous Letterboxd 4, it's not eligible in the future videos, because at the end of the year, I want there to be 48 different films that we're talking about, and there's a couple films that, there's a couple films that I've picked earlier in the year that would have made it in probably 4 different categories categories along the way, because films can, obviously fit into multiple things. And so I wanted it to be 48 different films. I didn't want it to just be me talking about how much I love Get Out, because I've already done that multiple times on the channel. So the if it's been selected before, it's excluded from this list. And this is the first time I was kind of surprised when I was going back and looking at the things I've already picked. I've already picked 5 films in previous categories that are biopics, so the following 5 films are excluded. Black Klansman and Judas and the Black Messiah were both in the Black History Month video, and I, Tonya, The Iron Claw, and Moneyball were all in the sports video. And without further ado, let's take a look at the current Letterboxd for Goodfellas, Oppenheimer, Rocketman, The Social Network. And here we go, right off the bat. Goodfellas was a film that I've seen this once. I saw it years ago, and I remember I loved it, but I also really have always wanted to have a rewatch of it, because the first time or the only time I've ever watched Goodfellas, it was on like December 31st or something on Netflix, and I knew the film was on Netflix, and in my head I was always like, oh, I'll watch it one of these days. And I remember it was the last day of the month, and I remember getting on Netflix and seeing that it says like leaving in, 2 hours or something, and it was leaving in less time than I had of the the length of the movie. So I remember watching the movie but being stressed the entire time, thinking that it was just gonna like disappear off Netflix before I finished the film. Luckily they let me finish the film before they took it away from me. But that was the first time I ever saw Goodfellas, and I remember I loved it, but in my head, and I knew it was based on a true story, but my brain still didn't wrap that as being a biopic or being like a biography. But it's a story told from this is why I'm excited to rewatch it, because I don't remember the name of the main character, but kind of telling his story, and so it kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't in my head, I wasn't thinking of Goodfellas as a biopic, but it was in like everyone's biopic list. So we're gonna put Goodfellas in there, and then Oppenheimer. That one feels like the most like obvious biopic, that's gonna be in here. Rocketman. I watched this a couple months for the LGBTQ Pride Month episode, and I mentioned in that video that it was really close to making that video, but when it missed, and I was like, I have a pretty good feeling that it's going to be in a video later in a couple months, and this is that video. I think Rocketman has pretty good chance of kind of staying the course here. And then The Social Network, that's another film that I've seen once, and I remember loving it, but it has been a little while. It's been not like it's not like I watched it when it came out. It was really only a couple years ago, but it's been enough time that I'm excited to give it a rewatch and see if I really love it as much as I remember, or if it's just kind of an okay film, and maybe that's one that something can kind of come take its place. And then looking at the 3 contenders: 42, The Big Sick, Catch Me If You Can. Now, the 3 contenders, these are 3 films that I have seen, but maybe it's been a while, and I just don't, or maybe they're the ones that were like super close. So for 42, for example, I watched that back in March for the sports video, and it was very close to making that one, and so that's why I'm wanting to rewatch it again, to just see, if it's, if it, cracks this one. The Big Sick is one that I saw this, have I only seen this movie once? I've had to have like watched it twice, but like that was years ago when it came out, and I remember it being a story about Kumail Nanjiani, about him and his wife and their story. But again, and that's another one in my head that I guess they're celebrities now, but like the story that they're telling here wasn't when they were celebrities, and so it's kind of like this, or at least just not as big as they are now. And so I remember not, like, when I was just thinking of biopics, I didn't think of The Big Sick at all. Like, that never crossed my mind as being a biopic, but it was in a lot of the lists that I've been going off of. And Catch Me If You Can is another one that, this is the one specifically where we'll see. The reason I'm putting it in the contenders here is because, A, it's been a while and I really want to rewatch it because I remember really liking it the first time. But I've also heard a lot of things about so many, like, inaccuracies in this film, and that it's not very true to the real story, and I've heard like a lot of stuff like that. And so this is one where I'm like, does this even count like as a biopic? Like, at what point, like, how many things can you change about the real true events and still consider it like biographical and consider it consider it a biopic? So that's why that one's here. But 3 films that I've seen, one of them I've seen recently, 2 of them I haven't seen in a while, but really excited to rewatch all of them. And then 3 films I haven't seen: Amadeus, The Elephant Man, Lawrence of Arabia. Now, these are just three classic films. I've heard, I should say I've heard so much about them, but I don't know much about any of them story-wise. I've just heard the titles, and I've heard people talk about them. I've heard people say how much they like them. And Lawrence of Arabia, is maybe the one that I know the most about, what it's about, but even then, I still don't really know a whole ton. Amadeus is super interesting to me because the only thing I know about it is the name and the poster. I have no idea who it's about. I did not realize it was a biopic until I was looking at biopic stuff, just because I haven't seen the film. All I know is that poster, and that poster doesn't give me biopic vibes, and so I'm really excited to get into Amadeus. I think, when I kind of clicked on it, I saw a little bit that I think it's about, like a composer or like a 18th century, musician. I'm trying to think of I guess composer is the right word I'm looking for, but even then, I still don't really know who it's about. And then the one that absolutely just my jaw dropped when I saw it on the list was The Elephant Man, because again, I don't know anything about this. Admittedly, David Lynch is a very big just blind spot for me. I just haven't seen. I don't know if I've seen anything from David Lynch, and so it's a director that I've always really been itching to watch. I've really, it's such a big, cinephile blind spot, to just have not seen anything David Lynch, and so I've heard of The Elephant Man. I've heard great things about it. I had no idea it was a biopic, and so when I saw it on there, I just had to throw it in there. All three of these have kind of that same thing of just pure curiosity on my part of. I just didn't know half of these, or any of these really were biopics beforehand. I guess Lawrence of Arabia, I probably knew, but the other ones I'm like, I just didn't know. So really excited to get into those three and just see what I have in store with these. And just a reminder, these 10 films that I just named, these are the 10 that I'm guaranteeing that I'm going to watch this month before the results video that'll come out kind of probably the beginning of December. But I'm going to watch as many as I can. Like last month, I think I watched almost 50 different horror movies. And so the plan is to watch as many films as I can, get a real good gauge of what my actual Letterboxd for was. And so we have a lot of content there for you in the results video. So just let me know down below in the comments what some of your favorite biopics are. Because, again, like I said, I'm going to watch as many as I can. And if you put something in the comments, I think so far I'm 100%. If anyone's ever suggested anything, I usually watch it. And so if you put that in the comments, I'll make sure to check your suggestion out. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, leave those comments down below about your favorite biopics. And then just to give you kind of a heads up, like I just said, the results video for this will probably be coming in the beginning of December. So hopefully there's another video or two in between then. But just know that I'm always checking the comments. So whenever you see this video, if you see it before the beginning of December, make sure to leave those comments down below, your favorite biopics. And if you'd like to like this video and then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos in this series or any of the other series that I have going on my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Have a great day.